Here's the way you have to think about it, brother. The place that you are right now is the perfect place to be for your spiritual evolution. You have work to do here. You have work to do here in this lifetime, right? And most people are funneling their energy into feats of escapism, right? You hear this word before, escapism. What does it mean to be entranced, ensconced in escapism? It means to be not doing your duty, not doing what you were put on this earth here to experience, right? And the way you know how you're doing that is when you move away from the fire and you move towards the water. That, in my opinion, is the key thing to understand if you're ensconced in practices of escapism. Now, you've heard of escapism before. They come in the forms of pornography. They come in the forms of drinking too much. They come in the forms of overindulgence in pleasure. Like I said, you're moving away from fire and you're moving towards the water, right? You're moving towards discomfort and you're moving towards comfort. That's another way to think about it. Now, you have to recognize that you're here, as I prefaced, for a lesson. You're here for a purpose. I was watching a documentary last night on near-death experiences, and these people have surreal experiences where they go down this tunnel in some form or another. Maybe the aesthetics of the tunnel change, and they meet these spiritual beings, right? And this is a continuous factor across all near-death experiences, that people go down this tunnel, they're embraced by some kind of warm energy, warm light, and they also experience beings, right? And these beings, because they're near-death experiences and they don't actually die, they don't actually leave their body, those beings say, they're not ready yet. You have more work to do here, right? You can't come with us yet. And they send them back, right? And some, unreal synchronistic circumstances happen back on the physical plane that allow them to resuscitate the individual who is dying, right? Like a woman who falls in a river, right? And she's underwater for 30 minutes. She's had no oxygen for 30 minutes. They pull her out and she's completely fine. Her brain's fine. They're in some remote area of Chile, and they go up the mountains with her on her kayak, because she was in a kayak. They come out onto the open road, and the first car they see is an ambulance. Strange. Very, very strange stuff. So I share this as an example to say that there is a sufficient amount of evidence, and I'm not trying to convince you. You can believe whatever you want to believe, that you're here for Dharma, to reduce your karmic debt is another way to look at it. And the way you do that is you have to go into discomfort. Otherwise, discomfort will come to you. You have to go into the fire and away from the water. You have to look very objectively, like you were helping a friend or a loved one in your life, and ask yourself the question, am I ensconced in escapism, or am I going into discomfort on a daily basis in life? Am I going into the fire? What is the circumstance? What is the chapter of your life at this particular time? How would you describe that chapter? Is it a chapter of independence, right? Maybe you're still living at home with your father and your mother, or whichever one it is. And the current theme, the current thought on your mind is, I need to get away and I need to start living my life on my own terms. That is your fire. That is some karmic debt that you need to burn off. Maybe you're playing too much video games. Maybe you're working part-time at the job when you should be working full-time, right? These are lessons. This is part of your karmic journey that you need to understand. And moving into the water is not going to be sufficiently contributing to your quality of life, because you're not engaged in that process of alchemy, right? And that's the way you have to look at it. A really good example in terms of going into the fire. When you go into the fire, like if you're trying to find gold from a piece of ore, you burn off the pieces that aren't conducive to the gold, right? You burn away the excess, and then you're left with the pure aspects of the gold. That's what this life is about. The human being is the ore, and you're throwing yourselves into these fires to burn off the impurities. That's what they are. They're impurities. And then once you can mitigate those impurities in forms of things like apathy, which is laziness, right? Not being involved in activities that are going to be conducive to your well-being, you'll see you become more refined. The ore becomes more pure, it becomes more gold. This is the process of alchemy, right? And then you find out when you burn off things like apathy, you're left with things like peace, right? You have true peace. Can you imagine that? The state of peace, the state of inner equanimity. That is something to be valued alongside something like gold. And, you're going to have to do this shit again. If you keep going into the water, if you never go into the burning heat, you'll have to come back and do this shit again. Like I said, you're here for a lesson. Why don't you try taking the lesson? And, for those individuals that have had glimpses behind the veil at peace, tranquility, I don't want to say the word enlightenment, but maybe you can use that word, samadhi, is there's a phrase where, and it goes back to this analogy of fire and water, is that before enlightenment you go towards water and away from fire, but after enlightenment you go towards the fire and you stay away from the water, right? And the concept is that once you do this enough, once you go into discomfort, you realize the spiritual growth that it gives you, and it makes no sense to keep prolonging your growth. You want to actualize peace. You want to actualize God. You want to actualize the highest version of yourself. So you willingly go into that fire, right? It's like a catharsis. It's like hormesis. It's like when you go to the gym and hey, the gym's going to be painful. It's going to be painful to do my back squats. And it's going to be painful to experience the DOMs and my glutes and my quads. But I do it because I like growth. I like to get better. I do it for the future. I do it for the man I'm going to become. I do it for the being I'm going to become. And the same way you have to approach when you have to have difficult conversations with your family, your difficult conversations with your mother, with your father, when you have to maybe break up with your girlfriend, because she's not being conducive to your growth. When you need to quit your job and start an online business, and then you don't have that comfort of security of a paycheck. Go into the fire. Go into the fire. So, gentlemen, this was just I believe, a very important lecture on you being in the perfect place you are right now for where you want to be. You have a test, you have a lesson, you have the test paper in front of you right now. Why don't you try taking the test? It's my invitation to you. Speak soon.